Hey everyone, it's Michelle with the Medicine Couch, and the first quarter of the new PANRE-LA is over, and we've already started the second quarter. I'm seeing a lot of feedback out there from people who have started the second quarter, and I wanted to kind of share that with you today. We're also going to talk about the scoring. I'm going to show you where to find your scores and kind of how to interpret them, and then talk about this scoring system. And also kind of talk about ChatGPT and if that's something that you can rely on and use to get all of your questions correct. So the first thing is, are the second quarter questions harder? I haven't opened the second quarter yet and taken them, so I can't speak from experience, but I've read many comments and feedback from people who have already taken the second quarter questions. At first I was a little concerned because I kept seeing people saying, whoa, the second quarter questions are way harder than the first one, and people worried that this test is going to get progressively harder as the quarters go on. I don't think that's the case because later, as more and more people responded and shared their feedback, I saw that many people were like, no, my second quarter questions were way easier than the first quarter. So I think it's just kind of random what questions you get assigned. Just know that some quarters there's going to be some harder questions, and sometimes you're going to get some easier questions. The questions are weighted and the scores do change depending on how hard the question is. So don't freak out if you see people saying that the second quarter was harder, or even if you take your test and the second quarter was harder. I think it's going to even out over time. So let's talk about your score, where you find it, and how to interpret it. So to do that, we're going to log into your NCCPA dashboard. You want to go over here to the left and go down to exams. So when you click on exams, it's going to take you to this screen, and it'll tell you what quarter you're in and how many questions you've answered, because remember, you can open the test but don't have to do all of the questions at one sitting. Over here on the right, it's going to tell you the due date that this quarter is due and how many days you have left in the quarter, which is handy, does that math for you. And then down here at the bottom, it shows you your progress. Look here to the cumulative progress to date. And this is going to give you the breakdown of how you did on the content by system. And it's just kind of a visual representation to let you know what areas maybe you need to do some more studying on and brushing up on before you go into the next quarter. And then this will show you your score status. The score ranges from 1,000 to 1,500. This is your score, the top bar in purple. This is the passing score for that quarter. And then below it is the average score. So this will let you know where you're at. If you're out here way above passing, then, you've got plenty of wiggle room. If you're here just close to the passing score or like way below the average, then that would give you indications that that wasn't the greatest quarter, and then maybe you should do some more studying, or maybe it was just nerves for the first quarter. But anyway, that's where you keep track of your progress. Now over here on the side, it does say that the scale scores are used to account for the relative difficulty of the questions you receive. And that goes back to what I was talking about, the first versus second quarter questions. There are going to be harder and easier questions as you move through this, and your score will reflect the difficulty of your questions. And that's why, like when the scores first came out, people would say, I got 23 out of 25 correct, and I got a score of 1260. But other people they got 23 out of 25 correct, and they got a score of 1175, or they got a score of 1270. That's because each question has a scale score, and then that will determine how much your score moves. Interestingly enough, I didn't see anybody, even with a perfect 25 out of 25, that ended up anywhere close to the 1,500. Hopefully that doesn't mean that there's some really hard questions out there coming our way. I don't really know why no one came close to the 1,500. And it could just be that only the few people I saw who posted that got in the high 1,200s, maybe low 1,300s. So if you're somebody who got a 25 out of 25 and you got a score in the 1,400s, or even the very high 1,300s, let us know down below. It would be interesting to see kind of what the highest scores were for the first quarter. And then it also says here that your interim score is based on your performance in the quarters you have participated in and will likely change over time. So the interim score is just going to be, I think, one final score at the end. And then here are the opportunities. It talks about how to improve your score. And so you can read through this and get a little bit better understanding of the scoring. But before I talk more about the scoring, because I have a lot to say about that, I want to just remind you of a few good test-taking practices. NCCPA says very clearly that if you missed a question in a certain category, that you will see that question again in a different form. Some people said that they had the same exact question, but regardless of whether it's the same or if it's in a different form, you're going to get the same topic again if you missed it the first time. So that means that every quarter you need to go back and you need to review the questions that you have missed previously. Go in and read about that topic a little bit and really understand it so you can be prepared if they ask it in a different way, that you can get that question correct. The second one is to remember that when you open a question, read through it, really make sure you understand what the question is asking, because some people were getting tripped up with that. So make sure that you know what you're looking for is the first thing. But the second thing is to go ahead and choose your best guess answer. Go ahead and click an answer and then go do your search. The reason you want to select an answer first is because if you do time out or if something happens and you lose your internet connection, that question you at least have a chance to get correct if you picked something. And then the third test-taking tip is people also said what I said, that it's best to have at least 2 different screens open. Some people had 3 or 4, but keep your test on one screen and do all of your searching on a different screen. A couple of reasons. One is that you'll be able to refer back quickly to the question, but also when you're looking at different resources and you're in a hurry and you got several screens open, you may accidentally click and close your test before you had a chance to make sure you had the right answer chosen. So don't miss a question for some stupid mistake like that. Okay, so let's talk about this scoring system. I'm really not happy about it. Well, I have mixed feelings about it. Part of me just wants to say to NCCPA, like, why? Why did you have to do it this way? I kind of feel like we've been tricked, misled, or even gaslighted. Why couldn't they have clearly communicated from the beginning how the scoring was going to be done, to give people a chance to make a better informed decision about which test they wanted to take? Now, here's why I'm so frustrated. Remember when I showed you on the screen that it said that you have the chance to improve your score and you could click there to get more information about that? And I'll read it exactly how they have worded. Each quarter, starting with the second, 5 topics are repeated to reinforce existing knowledge and facilitate learning. In these cases, the first attempt is removed from the score and the most recent attempt replaces it. So that's a good thing, right? That means that we have a chance, if we miss the question, to get it right. That's great. That's nice that we have the opportunity to do that. But the downside, or the flip side of that, as far as I can tell from reading this, is that first attempt is removed, whether you got it right or wrong, and they go with the second attempt, meaning that your score also has the potential to go backwards. Now, I don't think this is going to be a huge deal for most people, but if you're kind of on that bubble a little bit, that does mean that your score could go backwards and that could push you just under passing. And I think why that's a big deal is not so much that it's a dynamic score. It's just that this is a test that lasts over 2 to possibly 3 years. And I think most of us had it in our mind when we chose to take this test that you're going to take the test, you're going to get a score at the end of that quarter, you're going to put a little check mark or an X next to the quarter. And for most people, you'll be counting down the quarters. You're like, good, I got, 2 quarters under my belt and passed and done. I only have 6 more to go. And when you get to 6, you're like, good, I only have 2 more quarters to go, and I can be done with this in 8 quarters. There's something reassuring about having that knowledge that you passed. You can finish a quarter and it can be behind you and you don't have to think about it again. But with this scoring, that's not how it's going to work. Your score is dynamic. It can move forward and backward the whole 2 to 3 years that you're taking this test. I just think that's a lot of stress on people. I know it shouldn't matter. I know it's a good thing that we get to improve our score, and regardless, you're going to have to stay above the passing mark. But it just kind of sucks, doesn't it? I think most people just want to know, just want to have that quarter done. Again, it's not the end of the world. It just is not the greatest. I mean, most of us are pissed that we have to take this certification exam anyway, when no other providers have to take it to maintain their licensing. So we're not happy to begin with, but then to make it this way just seems like it's just wrong. It's just not nice to do to us and to make it so stressful. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. If somebody knows that the score is not going to go backwards, let me know, but that's my interpretation. So overall, I guess it's still a decent way to take the test. I think we'll have to see as the quarters go and how the scoring goes and see what people are thinking and feeling about this test, like whether they would take it again or not. Right now, I'm like solidly on the fence, and we're only at second quarter, so we'll have to see. Last thing I wanted to talk about was the resources. Most people reinforce that what I was saying earlier, that they are using a searchable blueprint. I see Hippo mentioned a lot, and some people are using Smarty Pants. And they're going to give you the book answers, what the test is looking for. That's why those are so nice to use. They're not going to be able to give you straightforward answers to every question, but they are really good resources. And then after the first quarter, I'm sure many people decided whether they needed to do an actual review course. If you want a review course, CME for Life is another PA owned and run company. I'll put a link down below in the description box with their website. They've got great options from flashcards to online videos to actual full courses, either online or in person. And so if that's something that you feel like you need, you might check out their course. Now, let's talk about ChatGPT, because this is interesting. I recently just did a whole video series, 3 videos about AI in medicine. And I think AI is going to be phenomenal and it's going to change our lives in so many ways. But is it ready for you to use now for this test? Is it something that can help you? I saw some feedback of people who tried to use it and they said, don't do it, that they missed too many wrong answers because of it. So I went in and did a little trial of it. I used some practice questions, and then I put in a few questions from my actual questions I had in the first quarter. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't go back and just copy and paste the questions from the NCCPA site. I don't know if you're able to do that when you're actually taking the test, but I had to kind of retype it and paraphrase it, which is awful and time consuming and probably not something you're going to be able to do during the test. But I just wanted to kind of see if it gave me the right answers. And I would say probably 80 to 90% of the time it did give me the right answers. So it wouldn't be terrible to use. But the thing is, when it gives you the answers, it gives you lots of reinforcing information about why that answer is correct. And it may be the correct answer, but it's not the answer that the test is looking for, if that makes sense. When you use the searchable blueprints, or even a PANS or PANRE-Pearl's book, which people said was also very helpful, and I'll put the link to which one they recommended the most in the description box. But they've written those resources knowing what the test likes to focus in on, knowing the keywords that they're going to be asking, and knowing what the test is looking for the most part. Whereas when you're using ChatGPT, it is artificial intelligence. It means it's not just a search engine. It's going to reason through and give you what it thinks is the best answer, which may be the correct answer in practice and in real life, but it's not going to give you the answer that the test is looking for. So that's why I say use ChatGPT with caution. If you do use it, try to double check its answers, or just go in knowing with a caveat that you may miss a couple based on what looks like pretty solid information. That's all I've got for you right now in this quarter. So if you're somebody who's going to be signing up for the test later this year or in future years, and you're just curious and want to learn more about the test, or if you're taking it right now and you have some questions, then watch my earlier videos explaining all about the PANRE-LA and comparing it and contrasting it with the traditional PANRE. I'll have the links to those videos here. Well, thanks for joining me. I hope that this was helpful, and I hope it was good to hear what other people had to say. Remember to take care, stay sane, and I'll see you next time on the Medicine Couch. Bye.